Okay, it's 9 o'clock on the dot, and I welcome everyone to the IELTS class for tonight. It is IELTS listening class, and you need to keep your background as quiet as you can keep it, because we'll be doing some listening practice and illustrations with the audios. So you need to keep your background quiet. So we are on IELTS listening, and last week, on Tuesday to be precise, we started the general rules that I gave us some 5 general rules that will help us tackle IELTS listening practice. Okay. And I am doing a recap before going into question types, because I said I'll be treating the listening on that 3 topics. The general rule, which is the number 1 thing. Okay, and I said, the general rule. Okay, number 1 of them was the instruction. That's why the instruction, you need to read the instruction. That is, you need to read to understand the instruction. Yes. Okay, read, understand, and adhere to the instruction. If the instruction says write no more than 2 words and or a number, you need to read. Okay, so that is it. So that's number 1. If the instruction tells you write no more than 2 words, you can't write more than 2 words. And particularly telling us now that when you are given the 10 minutes extra to transfer your answer from the worksheet, because your worksheet will look like this. Yes, you are picking the ABC, will look like this in some cases. So you need to, when you are transferring, you need to be sure that you check the instruction all over again, and that you have not written more than the required number of words based on the instruction. Okay, and number 2 thing, I said read or listen for the topic. I said the topic could be given on your rough work paper. That is, if the topic is telling you that we're going to be talking about this thing about visitation to a garden. Okay, if it is not on the paper, the topic will, the audio will first of all introduce the topic, then give you a 30-second breather so that you can get familiar with the question. Okay, so, and the number 3 thing is your question layout or format. That is, you need to understand the question, that is the possible answers to be expected, especially in areas where you are going to fill in the gap and things like that. Then you need to have 2 questions in sight or at mind, because you need to be aware of question 23 when you are on question 21, and when you are on question 22. That is what it means. And number 5, focus. Please interact with your scripts as the audio is playing, rather than let your mind wander off. You need to properly interact with your scripts. Okay, so today we'll be going to the question type. I'll be treating 3 questions particularly that give some people problem. Number 1 of them is multiple choice questions. The multiple choice question, just give me a second, please. Okay, so the multiple choice question, just like I said, it's a bit of one of the challenges some students face. Okay, and the things that you need to pay attention to in multiple choice questions are synonyms. Because while the audio is speaking, it might not use the direct word that is on the paper. Yes. So you need to pay attention to synonyms. Okay. For example, in this type of question in front of you, the audio might say the fair will start or will kickstart with a. So, but you know that start and kickstart is the same thing as begin. Okay, so you need to pay attention to the synonyms so that you won't be distracted. So that's one of the things you need to. And the other part is that all options will be discussed. Like this question now, the fair will take place at, is it at the fairground, at the park, or at the school? Okay, let me play the audio for you now so you will see. The audio will possibly discuss everything. I will pause it, then I'll play now.
And welcome to City Hour, the radio show that brings you all the latest information about events in and around our city. Today, we have with us Cynthia Smith, who is heading up this year's City Fair. Cynthia, would you start by giving us some of the basic information about the fair? Where will it take place this year?
I'm glad you asked that question because I know most people will be expecting the fair to be at the fairgrounds as usual, but we've had to change the location this year due to some construction work. You know, they're building the new high school in that neighbourhood and they've been using the fairgrounds as a place to store construction materials. So we've moved the fair to City Park, which I think is a wonderful location.
Okay, you can see in that audio now that it discussed all the options there. It is peculiar with listening all the options. Will it take place at the fair park? She was saying, okay, it normally holds there, but it wouldn't this year because there is a construction in the school and most of the materials used for the constructions are on the fairground. So they've moved the fair this year to the park. So that's one of the things you need to take note absolutely for listening question. So you need to stay really, really focused. Okay, and outside that, lengthy questions and options. Sometimes your question can be lengthy and the option is lengthy. Let me give you a typical example. Look at this place. This is question 24. Social network may cause depression because of. Now your option is what? Is more like a long phrase. Okay, people is common to all. Spend, portray, compare themselves to one another. You need to keep focus because this one means people portray themselves positive, people portray themselves positive, people spend too much time, social network, people compare themselves to others, feel miserable. So you need to stay focused, especially when the options are long. People is a common thing, so you don't need to focus on people. So you need to focus on other things, portray, compare, spend. So you will know that which one are they talking about, because the key thing is portray, spend, compare. So when the options has been talked about, not in relation to depression, you know which one to eliminate and which one to tick. I normally say you can just eliminate, cancel out, so that you don't stay idle. Yes. Okay, you say you can't see. That must be a network problem, freezing from your area. Okay, let me see what can be done. Okay. Can we all see? Please reply on the comment box. Yes, on the chat box, because someone said she can't see, but I'm transiting back now to the slide. If there's a network problem, then the slide will. Okay, someone said also as said she can't see. My network is good, but please confirm when you can see. Okay. Okay, the person says she can see now. Okay, just like I was saying, I said in this part, you should note something. When the question is lengthy and the options are lengthy, there are common things like people. You don't need to focus on the people. You are looking for portray, spend, compare. Those keywords, the one that says leads to depression is what you are okay, because there will be distraction. They will speak about other options in relation to other things or even in relation to depression, but you are looking for the way social network causes depression. It is the one that cause depression that you are looking out for. The same way here, so you can see day is common. You are not focusing on day. Immediately you are able to remove some words. You have less word to contend with. Okay, adaptation, encounter, experience, those are the key action there. So you need to look out for those key action when they are discussing. So you pick out the key action and the eventual action so that you'll be able to eliminate. Since you are using a worksheet on your exam date, you could just track them out as they are discussing the one that does not relate. Or when the one that related is picked, you tick it, but you go on until they finish the discussion in that section, then you cancel the rest and pick your answer. Maybe you pick by circling, but you know that you are, when the discussion is going on, you use a tick or an X to either pick an answer or strike out an answer, because that will keep you actually active and your mind will not be able to get away for so long. Okay, now, so that is it about the lengthy question, multiple choice question. So now I'm going to replay that audio and we're going to do the practice from question 11 to 14. Yes. I want us to do it from question 11 to 14. I'm going to treat three question types. Okay, so this is one of them. Question 11 to 14, I will play the audio one more time, though the answer of the first one has been revealed, but you will do the next, that one, and the next three questions. So I will play now. Okay, I hope you can, somebody sent a chat. Okay, you say it's clear from your end. So I will play it again.
Section 2. You will hear a radio interview about an upcoming fair. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 14. As you listen to the first part of the talk, answer questions 11 to 14.
Good afternoon and welcome to City Hour, the radio show that brings you all the latest information about events in and around our city. Today, we have with us Cynthia Smith, who is heading up this year's City Fair. Cynthia, would you start by giving us some of the basic information about the fair? Where will it take place this year?
I'm glad you asked that question because I know most people will be expecting the fair to be at the fairgrounds as usual, but we've had to change the location this year due to some construction work. You know, they're building the new high school in that neighbourhood, and they've been using the fairgrounds as a place to store construction materials. So we've moved the fair to City Park, which I think is a wonderful location.
Yes, that will be a great place for the fair. I understand that the fair begins on Friday morning with a special opening event.
Actually, it won't begin until that evening, but you're right about the special event. Traditionally, we've begun with a parade, but this year our opening event will be a special dance performance. And the most exciting part is that the mayor will be one of the dancers.
The mayor is a woman of many talents. Cynthia, could you tell our listeners about the price of admission? What will it cost to attend the fair?
We're trying to keep the price down as much as possible. A 3-day pass is just $25, or you can buy a Saturday or Sunday only pass for $15. The opening event on Friday, the dance performance, doesn't cost anything to attend, and we're hoping a lot of people will come to watch that.
Okay, so that is it. And I will reveal the answer now, but you must notice that something I said yesterday occurred. Between question 13 and 12 and 13, there was a very little gap the person used in supplying the answer. As a matter of fact, when he was discussing option 12, it started discussing 13 on the instant. Okay, someone said answer. Okay, I will reveal the answer now. You will know and mark yourself. If you want to send the answer, you can send, or just mark at your end. I will reveal the answer now. Okay, the answer is actually this is it, BCBA. That's the answer, BCBA. Okay, BCBA, that's the answer to that part. Okay, now let's move on and see if you can do another practice. Okay, so this one is a fresh practice. So I will play the audio shortly. Okay.
Section 2. You'll hear part of a free class about safety around campus. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 14. Now, listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 14.
Good evening. I'm Geoffrey Miller from the University of Nottingham Student Union. And in this week's free class, Carlos Garcia is going to tell us about safety around campus. Over to you, Carlos.
Thank you, Geoffrey, and thank you all for your attendance today. Also, I'd like to thank the Student Union here at the university for organising this lecture. Well, I've been serving and protecting the city of Nottingham for over 20 years now as a member of the police department. Does anyone know what type of crime is the most prevalent on campus? I heard someone say drugs and alcohol. That actually isn't too much of an issue. Violence? Nope. Actually, the biggest thing we worry about here is theft. The nature of crime on Nottingham's campus is quite different from that of the surrounding areas. Crime rates across the East Midlands are very difficult to control. We'd like to see the rate stay the same for this calendar year, but it has been increasing steadily over the past 3 years. On campus, however, I'm happy to say that the overall crime rate has fallen this year. You wouldn't think so if you've seen the extremely exaggerated stories in the media. The media has done nothing but cause more concern about crime in our area. Even the crime slideshows you see today are a little bit far-fetched, but at least viewers know they're not real events. We'd really like to see more factual news articles out there so the public can have a rational sense of the safety level of our society.
Okay, so that is the end of that one. I hope most of us are able to capture question 11 and question 14. Okay, if you want to send your answer, you can send it, but I will just reveal the answer now so you can know if you got it, because though we're still going to do some things. Someone said a chart. Okay, someone said BC, AB. Let me reveal it. Yes, actually, the answer 11 is B, 12 is C, 13 is B, and 14 is A. So that's BCBA. BCBA. That is the answer to the questions here. Okay. Yeah, someone said you didn't get 12 because the question 12 was when they were doing, 11 was when they were doing their introduction. That's why you need to focus. It was when they were doing the introduction that the person said the person is actually from, the person, the lecture was organized by, and the person was from. Okay. So that was when the question 11 came up before you can even settle in. Those are one of the things you need to pay attention to. And okay, so it talked about increase in crime rates. Generally, they expect it to decrease, but it says that of campus has decreased. So those are a lot of distractions that will come up during your IELTS multiple choice questions. Okay, I will go to another question type now, and this is sentence completion. Sentence completion has two things. One thing in common with, what do I call it? With multiple choice question, you also need to pay attention seriously to synonyms. And sentence completion can be a bit more tricky because if you look at this type of sentence completion now, okay, it's trying to say something and you need to complete it. So it means that you need to be aware of the words that are near to that box. Narcissism, if narcissism is fire, then Facebook is what? Okay, psychologist, this one said it. He said this one, people have a desire to broadcast their life to reinforce their self-concept, dash, and self-centeredness. So the second rule of thumb for you in sentence completion after the synonyms issue is you need to pay attention to words and action before and after the missing parts, because they will discuss them. So it will help you guide in picking your option. When they are not discussing around that, it can be a distraction. They can be discussing something else after talking about 31 before coming to 32. Okay, so those are the things you need to pay attention to. Two important things, please note. Synonyms, because they may not use the direct word sometimes from the passage in the audio in your rough paper. Okay, so you can see here too, I have this question. The first part here is what I call fill in the gap. The second part here is multiple choice question, and the third part is also fill in the gap. When they follow one another in your audio discussion, you need to move fast. Yes, so I need to write this one. You need to move fast, especially when you are getting into fast if interwoven with other question types. Yes, so you need to move. Immediately you've answered question 33, you need to go to question 34, especially if it does not say, first of all, pay attention to question 31 to 33, because when you get to the last section of IELTS, most likely it will just play question 31 to 40 straight without a break in between. Sometimes it can do it to question 21 to 30. Sometimes it will be question 31 to 40. So in such cases, multiple choice question can be a bit more tricky too. So those are the things you need to pay attention to. So, sentence completion, pay attention to the synonyms that can be used in place of the one in front of you, and also pay attention to what I call words beside, before, and after. In this 37, working on screen and working in dash in the room. Here, when they start mentioning therapies, you know, words around it that leads to the final one. Okay, so that is it. Those are the particular things you need to focus on in sentence completion. So I will play the audio for this one. This combines sentence completion and multiple choice question. And as I said, they are long sentences or long phrases option. They will be a bit challenging. So you need to focus. So I will play it now.
Section 4. You will hear a podcast about technology and mental health. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
I spoke to psychologist Thomas Chamorro-Premuzic about the risks he believes are posed by social media and technology.
If narcissism is fire, Facebook is gasoline. So people wouldn't have gravitated towards Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or Snapchat if they hadn't been narcissistic in the first place. By which I mean, you know, if they hadn't had this desire to broadcast their lives, to behave like celebrities and share personal information about themselves as if it's really interesting, and also seek positive feedback from others that reinforces their kind of self-concept and self-esteem and perhaps self-centered needs. Now, it is also true that if you throw gasoline into the fire, you know, I mean, these inherent tendencies, narcissistic tendencies that were there in the first place will become more exaggerated. And research has shown this. Research has shown, very simple summary of the studies is that the more narcissistic you are, the more time you are likely to spend on these various social networks. But at the same time, the more time you spend on these social networks, the more narcissistic you become.
So really it's a snowballing effect.
Exactly. And the depression one is a different kind of phenomenon. It's the fact that a lot of people spend so much time following or snooping on others on social media, and they're unaware of the fact that the people that they are seeing there are not the real people they know. And because most people portray themselves in an unrealistically positive vein, and Facebook and other social networks encourage the suppression of negative emotions and reward the presentation or display of positive emotions, it makes people miserable and depressed to see others as so happy, because you compare yourself to others and you're like, why aren't I so successful, so good looking, or so, you know, happy?
Okay, so when we're talking about tech and also about the impact of technology on our behavior, I think something that's again garnering quite a lot of attention is the impact of screen time on well-being, on performance, on cognitive ability and development when we were looking at younger people. And there was an interesting piece in Ars Technica that cited two separate studies that have been conducted in the US. The first is by Common Sense Media, which looked at just under 3,000 US children aged 8 to 18 about their media habits. And they found that teenagers were spending about 9 hours a day online with media, and tweens, so 8 to 12-year-olds, were using media for about 6 hours a day. So this is within quite a substantial amount of time, and then also a time in which they'd probably be better off outside playing or socializing in person with other people. Do you think that there's an impact there on, for instance, being able to read emotional cues or being able to form relationships in a way that's deep and meaningful? Is there anything to suggest that that's starting to be compromised because of our use of screens and tech?
So we don't have solid or reliable data on this yet, but at least conceptually, it would make sense. We all come to the world with a set of really basic and rudimentary skills that are developed or nurtured when they are put into practice or when we interact with the right triggers of these skills in the environment. So much like growing up isolated from others in a basement will lead to not having many social skills. If you grow up in the digital world mostly and you don't have much time to practice face-to-face interaction, you probably won't develop many people skills. The other thing that is, of course, problematic is that, you know, if people were spending 6 or 10 hours online reading books or getting educated, you know, you could argue at least they're developing intellectual skills or intellectual curiosity, but that's not the case. You know, at most they can spend 18 minutes on a TED Talk, which will give them, you know, more, it's edutainment rather than education. So it's the stuff that people do when they're online that is most problematic.
And what about things like the sensory input that we receive? So for instance, if you've got very young children, aged 6 to 12 months to 18 months, who are looking at screens instead of looking out and developing depth of field, what might that do for their development potentially in the longer term?
One could argue that if for them adaptation to the world will be even more technologically mediated, it's okay. You know, so it would only be a problem if you put them in a farm, ask them to hunt animals, or force them live in an Amish community. So, you know, in that sense, the average 5-year-old today is better equipped to interact with much of the industrialized world than a 60-year-old or 70-year-old, you know, because they can pick up any gadget and they know how it works. So I think the main deficit is around social and emotional skills. Connecting through people via technology is very different than having an effective face-to-face interaction. And so until this date, for example, we haven't worked out a way in which people can reproduce via technological means. You know, the fact maybe we will, and maybe virtual reality can generate this in the future. But you know, it's been pointed out many times that there are now more iPhones being sold every year, every day, not just every year, than people being born. This difference between these two numbers keeps increasing. I think probably there's a causal relationship. You know, the more time people spend on their smartphones or interacting with technology, the less time they have for physical interactions with others. So until we work out how to do certain things online, I mean, offline is the way to go. And most people now, young people, don't have these capabilities to develop certain skills in the physical or analog world.
So we've heard how tech can have adverse effects on our mental state, but how is it being used in a positive way to help us? With us in the studio today to discuss, we have psychotherapist Dr. Gillian Isaacs-Russell, author of new book, Screen Relations, The Limits of Computer-Mediated Psychoanalysis and Psychotherapy. We also have Dr. Richard Dobson, who's head of the bioinformatics at the NIHR Biomedical Research Center for Mental Health, and the tech team's own Hannah Jane Fox. Welcome, everybody. So, Gillian, may I start with you? So you're a practicing psychotherapist. How do you find that tech has affected your profession? So maybe with the advent of remote online therapy, should we start there?
Yes, well, I actually have done quite a bit of technologically mediated treatment, partly because I moved from the UK in 2008 to a remote area in the Black Hills of South Dakota, but wanted to keep practicing. And so I attempted to use a platform like Skype in order to see patients, and thought that it was going to really help me to avoid any of the pitfalls of space, distance, time. I could just be anywhere, anytime. And what I discovered, and what led to my research and this book, was that there are some very distinct differences between working on the screen and working co-presently in the room.
So we're all familiar with this idea of traditional Jungian psychoanalysis of lying back in a room on a couch and having our dreams interpreted and being in relationship present with the psychotherapist. But that's not the kind of therapy that we're talking about when we're talking about screen-mediated therapy. What have you seen in terms of the change and possibly the use of CBT with screen-mediated technology, and why is it suitable for online use?
I think that therapies like CBT or positive psychology, self-help, could be very appropriate for online use because they are didactic. They aren't based in a relationship. And the kind of talking therapies that you were referring to earlier are actually very strongly anchored in having a relationship. So if you're actually giving instructions to someone, if you are teaching them something, then of course it can be communicated through a screen. But if you are actually having to pay attention to the implicit, non-verbal part of the relationship, which we must do, then it doesn't come across in the same way. 60% of our communication is non-verbal and implicit. And actually, informatics researchers themselves, that is, specialists in information via technology, are talking about the fact that these kinds of implicit communications can't be carried over a screen at the moment, two-dimensionally.
So do you think that there are risks associated with the more didactic kind of instructive practices like cognitive behavioral therapy, where the patient is getting a list of instructions? Are there risks kind of taking that approach? Can this treatment kind of mask or even potentially worsen real problems?
I think that some of the risks may be that because we're not in the same room, we can't see the whole body. If you've ever worked on screen, you know that it's usually from the shoulders up. We're not able to see a lot of the intimate things that are going on with our patients. And so that means that, for instance, if someone is struggling with an eating disorder, it's going to be very difficult to see where they are in that, which could be dangerous.
Okay. This one was a lengthy one. I hope you were patient enough. Someone said the volume was poor. Wow. I guess maybe from your side. The thing there is that the volume is even better. The thing there was that, okay, some questions were not clear. Was it the screen or what was not clear about the question? Because they discussed a lot of things, I want to take us through the discussion and the screen so that you can understand. You said the volume. Okay, I'll first of all review the answer, then possibly take you through some, because it is a lengthy discussion, and the only thing that will give you the idea is when some certain keywords are mentioned. Okay, you said it was breaking. I guess that would be a network from your side. Okay, if the network is fluctuating, then it will keep breaking. Okay, but one thing I want you to notice that because it's a lengthy discussion, at every point in time, you need to be looking out your keywords. If you look at the screen, I will reveal the answer, but play it, some part of it again. This is the answer on my side. Yes. Okay, 31 is gasoline, 32 is self-esteem, 33 is narcissistic, 34 is C, 35 is A, 36 36 C, 37 co-presently, 38 didactic, 39 implicit, 40 intimate. So I will run through some of it because so as to give a guide to how this thing runs, because it's a complex and long narration. Okay.
I spoke to psychologist Thomas Chamorro-Premuzic about the risks he believes are posed by social media and technology.
If narcissism is fire, Facebook is gasoline.
Okay, so that was where I mentioned answer to question 1. And that's why I say you need to pay attention to the words before, because the lady introduced the psychologist, Dr. Thomas Chamorro-Premuzic, whatever the name is. And then he started saying that if narcissism is fire, then Facebook is gasoline. Okay, the thing there is that then you go to the next question, and he's talking about people broadcasting their life, self-esteem, self-concept. This one is missing, and self-centered need. So people broadcast their lives. When they start saying something about people publicizing their life, broadcast their life, then you know that they are near to your discussion, because I will play the audio now again from that place.
So people wouldn't have gravitated towards Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or Snapchat if they hadn't been narcissistic in the first place, by which I mean, if they hadn't had this desire to broadcast their lives, to behave like celebrities and share personal information about themselves as if it's really interesting, and also seek positive feedback from others that reinforces their kind of self-concept and self-esteem and perhaps self-centered needs.
So he has mentioned the answer to that one. There was a lot of discussion when he said people were broadcasting their life, and then it kept talking, but you need to focus on your keyword. That's why you need to keep focusing. When he started saying broadcast their lives, yeah, it was still talking. It took him a while before he got to reinforce their self-concepts, their self-esteem, then their self-centered needs. So in this part, you are watching when he will mention the words around this place, self-concept or self-centered. So those are the things you must look out for. Okay, and for those who said they've not checked it, I still want to continue.
Now, it is also true that if you throw gasoline into the fire, these inherent tendencies, narcissistic tendencies that were there in the first place, will become more exaggerated. And research has shown this. Research has shown, very simple summary of the studies is that the more narcissistic you are, the more time you are likely to spend on these various social networks. But at the same time, the more time you spend on these social media, the more narcissistic you become.
So really it's a snowballing effect.
Exactly. And the depression one is the difference.
Okay, so that is it. You need to pay attention to the keywords around it. And now let us go into the one of the multiple choice question. Okay, before I go to the next one. Okay.
Different kind of phenomenon is the fact that a lot of people spend so much time following or snooping on others on social media, and they're unaware of the fact that the people that they are seeing there are not the real people they know. And because most people portray themselves in an unrealistically positive vein, and Facebook and other
He's still talking about the last thing,
the suppression of negative emotions and reward the presentation or display of positive emotions, it makes people miserable and depressed to see others as so happy, because you compare yourself to others and you're like, why aren't I so successful, so good looking, or so happy?
Okay, so when we talk
okay, so in this part we can note that he talked about all the options. It's forcing people, Facebook forces people to portray themselves as in a positive way, but what you were looking for is that social media, what it causes. Okay, so then it said when people spend too much time, then it came here and said, okay, this one leads to depression, especially when people start to compare themselves to one another. So it will talk around all the options, but you need to grow to understand the one that is actually talking about, the one that causes depression. So the discussion got so lengthy. Let me see if I can fast forward to 37, because I knew that there was a lot of gap between 37 and 38. And the basic thing is that you need to keep looking at the keyword therapy, CBT, online, appropriate, when he's talking at length after leaving question 37. Because those are the particular thing, especially when the audio is slow. Sometimes the audio will be fast, sometimes the audio will be slow. There will be a lot of lengthy discussion. But one thing, stay glued to your question and the keyword. Start looking out for when he's going to mention or she is going to mention one of the keyword in the sentence that you are at that particular moment. And I said it, your eye needs to be roving around question 37 and 36 if you have answered question 36. So that is it. Let me see if I can fast forward it and get the place.
With the advent of remote online therapy, should we start there?
Yes, well, I actually have done quite a bit of technologically mediated treatment, partly because I moved from the UK in 2008 to a remote area in the Black Hills of South Dakota, but wanted to keep practicing. And so I attempted to use a platform like Skype in order to see patients, and thought that it was going to really help me to avoid any of the pitfalls of space, distance, time. I could just be anywhere, anytime. And what I discovered and what led to my research and this book was that there are some very distinct differences working on the screen and working co-presently in the room.
Yes.
So we're all familiar with this idea of traditional Jungian psychoanalysis of lying back in a room on a couch and having our dreams interpreted.
Lengthy discussion now, but you must be here.
With the psychotherapist. But that's not the kind of therapy that we're talking about when we're talking about screen-mediated therapy. What have you seen in terms of the change and possibly the use of CBT with screen-mediated technology, and why is it
CBT online use? Okay.
I think that therapies like CBT or positive psychology, self-help could be very appropriate for online use because they are didactic.
They are didactic.
They are based in a relationship. And the kind of talking therapies that you were referring to earlier are actually very strongly anchored.
Okay, maybe some of us might be challenged by the tone because the tone was very low. Okay, so that is it. But the major thing that I was trying to point out when I started illustrating was the fact that when you move away from one question, start looking at your keywords, start looking around your words to listen out to when one will be mentioned, then you know that it has touched down on the next thing. Okay, so that you can pick your answer as easy as possible. Okay, let's go to the last question now. Question type. This audio is generally not noisy. That is the last one I played. It's just the tone, the pitch of their voice. Okay, matching task. Matching task question in listening can be challenging. This is a sample matching task. You have a list of options here. Okay, what is the improvement of each main point of interest in the area? Choose 5 answers from the box and write a correct letter A to G next to question 16 to 20. So it means in your box, You're going to pick which one. Maybe the car park has a new entrance, or they provide free lunch at the car park, or free information is provided at the museum, or things like that. In this type of question, this is your main focus, because your eyes will keep darting around these options, because they will answer this sequentially. That is, question 16 answer will be provided first before question 17. So your eyes need to be on this: new entrance, free lunch, free information. Anything that looks alike like this, pay attention. Lunch, information. So increase in size, additional signs, new exhibition, new structure. I've said it. Anything that has similar beginning, pay attention to them, because they might be the thing that quickly just freeze you and unable to pick your choice on time. So the guideline is that you need to be familiar with this option. When you are giving your 30 seconds break, you need to look through the options and get familiar. Entrance, lunch. Yes, don't memorize. You are not memorizing. You are just familiar, and you're able to see. Your eyes will just be on note car park here. When you note car park, your eye is darting around, because you need to have car park in the mind. What happened to car park, or what is happening in car park? That is what you are looking out for. So you focus on one question at a time here, but you focus on all the options, because it can pick answer for car park from, it can be, says the car park has been newly expanded. That means the size has increased. Also pay attention to synonyms, because it might not use increase in size. It might say the car park has recently been expanded. So you need to know that it has been increased in size. Okay, so those are the things you need to look for. So synonyms, let me write it down, because those who will be requesting for it to eat, pay attention to synonyms as well. So you need to get familiar with the options. Your eye needs to keep dashing around the options, but you stay on one question. You don't be going about the question altogether. Stay on one question. When that question has been answered, then you move to question 17. Okay, so that is it for matching task question. This one, I will want us to practice it before we call it a day. I know the volume is not as bad as the last one, so let us pay attention to it. Okay, let me see where it started, so that I will. Okay, 16. Okay, so it will be in the middle of the audio.
Section 2. You will hear a talk about the main points of interest and the...
Don't worry.
Standard hour national history.
I want to get to the point.
Before you hear the rest of the talk, you have some time to look at questions 16 to 20.
Okay.
Now listen and answer questions 16 to 20.
Now I'm going to outline the improvements we have made in our efforts to make the experience even better for each and every one of our visitors. You probably noticed when you first drove into the car park this morning that there is now additional signage to help avoid confusion. The directions were not entirely clear at first, so we have increased the number of one-way signs indicating the correct direction of traffic flow. Not far from there, in line with our mission of giving back to the community,
we constructed a brand new playground for the primary school. It is really something to be excited for. The equipment is state-of-the-art and includes swings, a small climbing wall, and even an obstacle course. Now we'll head north and take a look at the Science Museum. In response to our feedback from past visitors to the museum, there is now free information available outlining not only upcoming IMAX showings, but also natural wonders like meteor showers, eclipses, and other cool natural events. The Science Museum isn't the only museum improving the experience of its visitors. The National History Museum has added an entire new wing to its facility to accommodate the large crowds of people gathering to see the Civil War exhibit, Inventions Timeline exhibit, and other wonderful sections of the museum. The increase in space will definitely give a more calm, comfortable experience for visitors. And finally, remember when there was actually a line at the mall entrance from the tube station? It was terrible trying to get anywhere from the tube because foot traffic got so backed up sometimes. We have addressed that by adding another entry point into the mall from the other end of the platform to disperse the crowd. So those are the major improvements we have made. Clearly, having too many people that want to visit and enjoy what our community has to offer the public is a good problem to have, and I am confident that we have made the changes necessary to accommodate the growing interest in the area. As always, we welcome any questions, comments, or concerns about the new improvement plan. In a few minutes, I will open up the floor for questions, but you can also contact me or any other board member by email or through the city website. Thank you for coming. And
Okay, so that is it. I hope we're able to get it, though there was some change of words in question 17 and question 20. Okay, I hope we're able to stay focused. Someone sent answer EGCDA. I'm not sure you are totally correct, but I'm going to reveal the answer now. Okay. Okay, so this is the answer, EGCDA. EGCDA. Okay. Okay, that was good. So that is it about matching task question. Okay, so we have come to the end of our lecture today. Next lecture on Tuesday. Okay, and for those who have said Thursday, there is usually a network problem. Okay, we're so grateful. I've made a serious complaint to my network providers. So we're so grateful that there was no network problem today. And on Tuesday, I will be treating how to handle maps, charts, and diagram. Normally, I don't spend too much time on this question type, but some people said they were having challenges in some of the question types, such as multiple choice questions. Yes, that's why I had to spend much time today on it. So for those who have been having challenges with maps, with charts, with diagram, I will be treating that next Tuesday. Yes. So we've come to the end of the class. So if you have any question, please let me know. I will open the line now if you want to talk, but please keep your background quiet. Anybody with any question?
Yes.
Okay, what's your name, please, and your question?
Okay, I am
Okay.
My question is on this last lecture, the matching, the one that we just did now.
Okay.
I'm confused. Honestly, I was not able to get any of them. I don't really know how to, the way to be getting this answer.
Okay. Let me go for those who are done, and you can exit. So because of your time, but let me quickly then raise to an explanation of what you just said now. Okay, I will go to the question again. So I will have to mute everyone this time around. Okay. in this matching task question, okay, sorry. Can you see the question now? Okay, let me unmute you in particular. Can you see the question?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the, what do I call it now? This is the question. What improvements, which is the improvement in each main part or main point of interest in the area? Okay, choose 5 answers from the box and write correct letter A to G next to 16 to 20. So this is the place where you are filling. It means they are asking you what improvement has been done in this area. If you look at the question, it says what is the improvement of each main point of interest in the area? It means this is the each point, these are the points in each of the area. You have the car park, you have the school, you have the science museum, you have the national museum, and you have the shopping mall. It's telling you that what changes has happened to each of this one. The changes are on this side, on your left hand side. That is, has a new entrance been provided to the car park, or free lunch provided there, or free information provided, or there has been an increase in the size, or there has been an additional sign, or new exhibition, or new structure. Now, I will play the audio again, okay, so that you can systematically follow how the answer. So you are going to wait for what happened to car park. So I will play again now. Okay.
Now listen and answer questions 16 to 20.
Okay.
Now I'm going to outline the improvements we have made in our efforts to make the experience even better for each and every one of our visitors. You probably noticed when you first drove into the car park this morning that there is now additional signage to help avoid confusion.
Additional sign.
The directions were not entirely clear at first.
Okay. So the answer to that one now is additional sign, because it said you will notice when you got to the car park this morning that additional signage has been provided. Okay, so car park 16 is E, because you are just expected to write the letter in front, which is E. Okay, so after filling that one now, you know car park, the additional sign, then you go to question 17, because you will go to the next question, but your option, you will need to listen out for your option on the left-hand side. Okay.
We have increased the number of one-way signs indicating the correct direction of traffic flow. Not far from there, in line with our mission of giving back to the community, we constructed a brand new playground for the primary school.
So new playground.
Really something to be excited for.
They constructed a new playground for the primary school, but when you check out your options, there was nothing like a new playground. But the nearest thing in meaning was a new structure. Yes. Because you can't say a new exhibition. It's not increase in size. It's also they constructed a new structure. Yes. So that is the way to pick your answer. Then when you go to the
equipment is state of the art and includes swings, a small climbing wall, and even an obstacle course. Now we'll head north and take a look at the Science Museum.
Okay.
In response to our feedback from past visitors to the museum, there is now free information available.
Free information.
Outlining not only upcoming IMAX showings, but also.
So they now provide free information at the museum. So that is E. Okay, so you write C in front of the museum. Okay. So now let's go to the next one.
Natural wonders like meteor showers, eclipses, and other cool natural events.
The Science Museum isn't the only museum improving the experience of its visitors. The National History Museum has added an entire new wing to its facility to accommodate the large crowds of people gathering to see the Civil War exhibit, Inventions Timeline
this one is talking about
and
size.
other wonderful sections of the museum. The increase in space will definitely give a more calm, comfortable experience for visitors.
Okay, that one was not straightforward from the beginning, but it says added a new wing to increase the size. Okay, and this was the only thing that was talking about new structure. We've assigned it to the primary school, but now it said added new wing, but it was particularly focusing on the size to be able to accommodate more people. Yes. Okay, so now that is the one for 19. So when we go to the next one, yes, 20.
And finally, remember when there was actually a line at the mall entrance from the tube station? It was terrible trying to get anywhere from the tube because foot traffic got so backed up sometimes. We have addressed that by adding another entry point into the mall.
Another entry point. So that's new entrance. Yes. So another entry point. Though it didn't particularly say, so that's why I said one thing you need to look out for is synonyms. New entrance, another entry point. So the main thing is that this is your area of focus, but you need to be looking at your question one after the other, picking the answer. After you've picked the answer, you go to the next one. But one thing you need to also do, which I gave in the general rule, you need to know that primary school was the next. Because if you missed car park, you need to go to primary school straight, because there's a possibility you miss because of an error. You can't afford to stay. So you need to be aware of question 17 while you are also on question 16, car park, primary school. So that is the gimmick of getting this one. I hope it is clear now.
Very clear.
Okay. So we'll see again next Tuesday. So I say good night to everyone.
Night.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah.